So let us delve into the captivating world of ancient Greek religion, one of the most enchanting and myth-rich cultures ever to grace our planet. Why does this subject continue to stir the minds of people across millennia? The answer lies in the amazing vitality and pronounced humanity of the ancient Greek deities. They were not detached, indifferent beings, observing human concerns from afar. On the contrary, the gods of ancient Greece were endowed with qualities inherent to ordinary mortals. They experienced love, harbored animosities, made mistakes, and even knew suffering. At the same time, they were granted divine power, allowing them to control all aspects of the lives of the ancient Greeks, from the depths of the sea and the celestial expanses to warfare, love, and art, which were an integral part of their existence. Picture the everyday life of this remarkable civilization. Every event in the lives of the ancient Greeks, from the birth of a child to the preparation for a military campaign or the gathering of the harvest, was inextricably linked to the will of the gods. If a storm shook the sea, it was perceived as the wrath of Poseidon, the lord of the seas, angered by human audacity. If the harvest was plentiful and generous, gratitude was offered to Demeter, the goddess of fertility and agriculture. And if someone was fortunate enough to find love, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, undoubtedly played a direct role in it. Of particular interest is the structure of the ancient Greek pantheon, a complex hierarchy of gods, each responsible for their own sphere of influence. At the very center of this divine world sits Zeus, the supreme god, the ruler of Olympus and the thunderer, governing all that exists. He commands the elements, hurls lightning bolts, and establishes the laws by which both gods and humans live. However, even Zeus is not all-powerful. His wife Hera, the goddess of marriage and family, constantly clashes with him over his numerous love affairs. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and righteous warfare, is always ready to offer advice, but only to those who truly deserve her attention. Apollo, the god of art, music, and harmony, can be generous and benevolent, but he always remains stern and just. And Ares, the god of war, embodies chaos and destruction, at times frightening even his fellow gods with his uncontrolled fury. What makes these gods so fascinating to the modern person? First and foremost, their humanity, their ability to experience emotions inherent to mere mortals. They live life to the fullest, fall in love, are jealous, compete with each other, plot intrigues, and make mistakes. They simultaneously tower above us, mortals, and yet are surprisingly similar to us. Through myths about the gods, the ancient Greeks sought not only to explain the structure of the world around them, but also to show that even the most powerful beings are not without weaknesses and shortcomings. The religion of ancient Greece had a huge impact on the formation of the worldview of people of that era, leaving an indelible mark on art, literature, and even on our modern understanding of heroism, fate, and moral values. The religion of ancient Greece is truly an amazing world, where the gods did not just watch the lives of people from the heights of Olympus, but were an integral part of their daily existence. Imagine a world in which every event, every natural phenomenon, and even the most mundane actions were inextricably linked to the will of the gods. Ominous rolls of thunder on the horizon are a manifestation of the anger of Zeus the Thunderer, dissatisfied with human actions. A calm and gentle sea is evidence of the favor of Poseidon, appeased by the offered gifts. The beauty of spring bloom and the abundant harvest are a gift from Demeter, the goddess of fertility, generously endowing the earth with her blessings. The ancient Greeks lived in a world where the divine and the human existed side by side, intertwined in bright and dramatic stories full of passion, intrigue, and heroism. The religion of the ancient Greeks was polytheistic, which means that they worshipped many gods, each of whom possessed their own unique functions and attributes. For the ancient Greeks, this approach was a natural way of comprehending the complexity of the world around them, an attempt to break down all phenomena into understandable components. Each god was endowed with his own sphere of influence, his own area of responsibility. Zeus, as already mentioned, was the lord of the heavens and thunder. Poseidon was the ruler of the seas and oceans. Athena personified wisdom and strategic thinking, and Aphrodite embodied love, beauty, and sensual pleasures. Together, they formed a complex hierarchical system where each god occupied his own strictly defined place, contributing to the overall harmony of the universe, maintaining its balance. It is important to note that these gods were not abstract forces or incomprehensible entities inaccessible to the understanding of mortals. They possessed the appearance of humans, thought like humans, felt like humans, and this was their main feature, making them close and understandable to ordinary mortals. They could be great and powerful, capable of deciding the fates of entire nations, but at the same time remain vulnerable and emotional like ordinary people. This phenomenon is called anthropomorphism, the depiction of gods in human form with human character traits, endowing them with human emotions and motives. Imagine Zeus, the supreme god, seated on a majestic throne with lightning in his hand, the symbol of his power. At first glance, he may seem omnipotent and infallible, but if you look closely, you can see that he also experiences human feelings and emotions. He cares about his children, fears the intrigues of his jealous wife Hera, and even sometimes tries to please mortals, winning their favor. His immense strength and power do not make him imperfect, do not rid him of human weaknesses. Or take Hera, Zeus's wife, who could weave the most complex intrigues, driven by jealousy and a thirst for revenge, but at the same time she sincerely cared about the sanctity of marriage and family values. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, is able to inspire people to the greatest deeds for the sake of passion and love. But her whims and fancies can destroy entire lives, sowing chaos and destruction. And even the formidable Hades, the lord of the underworld, was not just a cold and gloomy ruler, devoid of any feelings. His love for Persephone, whom he kidnapped and made his wife, reveals touching human traits in him, demonstrating his ability to experience tender feelings. These gods not only controlled natural phenomena, determining the course of events in the world, but also actively shaped the world of values and actions of people, influencing their moral principles. Every lightning bolt flashing in the sky, every harvested crop, every victory or defeat in war, all this was associated with their will, with their decisions and actions. But the most exciting thing is their stories, myths, interweaving the destinies of gods and people into a tangled web of events. Myths were not just a way to entertain, a way to pass the time with a fascinating narrative, but an important tool for education and understanding the world around us, for transmitting knowledge from generation to generation. Myths explain why the seasons change, how fire appeared, why stars burn in the sky, giving answers to the most important questions that concern people. Demeter, grieving for her daughter Persephone, abducted by Hades, with her sorrow made the earth freeze in winter dormancy, depriving it of fertility. Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give it to people, was severely punished by Zeus, but his sacrifice became a symbol of the struggle for knowledge and progress, a symbol of striving for a better future. These stories were full of deep meaning and important life lessons, teaching people wisdom and virtue. Through myths, the Greeks learned not only about the structure of the universe, but also about the complexity of human nature, learning to understand themselves and those around them. And most surprisingly, the gods did not demand blind love or unconditional reverence from people. They did not strive for absolute submission. They could be feared, respected, thanked for the help they provided, and even hated for the suffering they caused. A seafarer could offer prayers to Poseidon for calm waters, asking him for mercy, but at the same time curse him if a raging storm tore the sails of his ship. A farmer brought rich gifts to Demeter, thanking her for a generous harvest, but could feel resentment and disappointment if a drought destroyed the crops, depriving him of his livelihood. Relationships with the gods were complex and deeply personal, resembling relationships between people with all their nuances and contradictions. Religion was not just a set of rituals and dogmas, but an integral part of the daily life of the ancient Greeks. People began their day with prayer, addressing the gods with requests and thanks, dedicated holidays to them, arranged lavish celebrations, built magnificent temples, erected altars, offered sacrifices, hoping to win their favor and avoid their wrath. Even the simplest actions, such as raising a cup of wine or breaking off the first piece of bread, could be a gesture performed in their honor, a sign of recognition of their power and influence on people's lives. It was a world where the divine and the earthly were inextricably linked, where gods and people existed in the same space, interacting with each other, sometimes in peace and harmony, and sometimes in fierce conflict. It is this depth in humanity that made ancient Greek religion so fascinating and attractive to study. It told not only about divine power and might, but also about the human soul, about its weaknesses, fears, hopes, and aspirations. The Greek gods were not just characters and myths created to entertain the public. They were a reflection of life itself, of its complex and contradictory nature. Among all the ancient Greek gods and heroes, Zeus undoubtedly occupies a central place, being a key figure in the pantheon. He is the supreme ruler of Olympus, the lord of the heavens and the thunderer, possessing unlimited power. Yet the path to his might was long and arduous, fraught with trials and struggles, beginning from the very depths of creation, from the moment all things came into being. To grasp his story, we must journey back to those distant times when neither us nor mortals, nor the world itself in its familiar form, yet existed. Then there was only formless and boundless chaos, from which all else would later emerge. From chaos sprang Gaia, Mother Earth, a mighty goddess who became the foundation of all existence, the source of life and fertility. She bore Uranus, Father Sky, and together they brought forth the first generation of powerful beings, endowed with immense strength and authority, the Titans. The Titans were ancient deities, embodying the fundamental elements and phenomena of nature, governing various aspects of the cosmos. Among them were the mighty Oceanus, symbolizing the boundless waters that encircled the earth; Tethys, mistress of springs, rivers, and lakes, bestowing life-giving moisture; Hyperion, the embodiment of light, illuminating the world with his radiance; and Phoebe, goddess of brilliance and prophecy, foretelling the future. But among all the Titans, Cronus, the youngest son of Gaia and Uranus, stood out in particular, distinguished by his exceptional cruelty and treachery. Driven by an unquenchable thirst for power and incited by his mother, Cronus overthrew his father Uranus, stripping him of his authority and influence. This was the first instance in history where power was seized through betrayal and violence, and Cronus became the king of the Titans, establishing his brutal tyranny. It seemed he was destined to be a great and wise ruler, but his fate was already sealed, and he was not to escape a tragic end. Uranus, before his demise, cursed Cronus, prophesying that his own children would one day depose him from his throne, just as he had overthrown his father, and that he would suffer the same fate. Fearing the fulfillment of this terrible prophecy, Cronus resolved to act harshly and ruthlessly to prevent any possibility of rebellion against his rule. Each time his wife, the Titaness Rhea, gave birth to a child, he mercilessly devoured it, denying it even the slightest chance to grow and avenge his misdeeds. Thus were swallowed their firstborn: Hestia, goddess of the hearth; Demeter, goddess of fertility and agriculture; Hera, goddess of marriage and family; Hades, ruler of the underworld of the dead; and Poseidon, lord of the seas and oceans. It seemed that Cronus's power would be eternal and unshakable, but Rhea, consumed by grief and despair, could not allow her last child to share the same fate as his brothers and sisters. When the time came for Zeus to be born, Rhea decided to deceive Cronus to save her last son from certain doom. Instead of the newborn infant, she wrapped a common stone in swaddling clothes and presented it to her husband. Cronus, suspecting nothing, swallowed the substitution, confident that he had eliminated another threat to his power. But Rhea hid the real Zeus in a deep and secluded cave located on the distant island of Crete, where no one could find him. There, far from his cruel father, the infant was carefully raised by nymphs, surrounded by their love and care, and the goat Amalthea fed him with her milk, granting him strength and health. Zeus grew up surrounded by love and care, knowing that a great destiny was ordained for him, that a difficult and thorny path awaited him. He was not just a child hiding from the wrath of his cruel father. He was the last hope for a world mired in chaos and lawlessness. His birth marked the beginning of the end of the era of the Titans, who ruled the world with brute force and fear, and the beginning of a new era where order, justice, and, yes, a bit of chaos, which Zeus always brought with him, being impulsive and unpredictable, would reign. But even then, in his safe haven, he displayed the character traits that would later become his hallmark: the distinctive features of his personality. He was not only resolute and just, but also incredibly charismatic, possessing the gift of persuasion and the ability to win over people and gods. It was these qualities, along with his immense power, that made him the undisputed leader among the future Olympians, attracting allies and followers to his side. The story of Zeus is a captivating tale of a miraculous rescue from certain death, a hidden confrontation with a cruel tyrant, and a patient wait for the moment when he could restore the lost balance and restore justice. But the most important thing in his story is the birth of hope, symbolizing the possibility of change for the better. For with his arrival, the ancient world prepared for fundamental transformations, for the establishment of a new order, which, despite all its complexities and shortcomings, became a new era in the history of gods and humans, an era of progress and prosperity. Imagine a small infant hidden in a deep cave located on the slopes of the majestic Mount Ida, towering over the island of Crete. This was a secret place where fate shielded the future thunderer from the all-seeing eye of Cronus, preventing him from reaching his son. He was surrounded by caring nymphs, Adrastea and Ida, who not only fed him, but also loved him as their own son, showering him with their tenderness and affection. And the sacred goat Amalthea gave him her milk, which it was said filled Zeus with divine power, making him invincible. It was her horn, according to ancient legend, that became the horn of plenty, a symbol of grace, prosperity, and inexhaustible wealth. But even in such a secure shelter, his safety remained quite fragile, as there was always the danger that Cronus would learn of his whereabouts and seek to destroy him. The Curetes, the sacred guards whom Rhea had placed to protect Zeus, loudly struck their shields, danced, and made noise to drown out the child's cries and deceive Cronus, preventing him from suspecting anything amiss. It seemed that nature itself, nymphs, spirits, and even sound, united to protect Zeus as he grew and gained strength, so that one day he could fulfill his great destiny and change the world for the better. When Zeus matured and became strong enough to learn the truth about his origins, he was told about the terrible prophecy that he was to overthrow his father and free his brothers and sisters. But in order to fulfill this prophecy, he needed immense strength, capable of withstanding the mighty Titans, who surpassed him in power and number. Zeus decided to descend into Tartarus, into the depths of the underworld, where the Cyclopes were imprisoned, one-eyed giants who possessed incredible strength and were unsurpassed masters of the blacksmith's craft. These mighty beings were children of Uranus and Gaia, but due to their unusual appearance and immense power, Uranus feared them and imprisoned them in the dark depths of the underworld, depriving them of their freedom. Even Cronus, who overthrew Uranus, did not release them from captivity, fearing their immense power and unwilling to set them free. The Cyclopes were legendary smiths, capable of creating weapons that bore the power of the cosmos itself, possessed magical properties. When Zeus freed them from their dark prison, they saw in him not only their savior, who had freed them from captivity, but a future leader who could be trusted with their power and skill. In gratitude and loyalty, the Cyclopes forged for him the Thunderbolt, a mighty weapon that became the embodiment of Zeus's divine power, a symbol of his authority and might. Each strike of this thunderbolt was not merely a destructive act, but a manifestation of supreme power, capable of changing the course of events. At this momentous juncture, Zeus acquired that which made him virtually invincible, that which allowed him to triumph over the Titans and establish his dominion over the world. But Zeus was not only a wise ruler and a valiant warrior, but also a god who could not resist beauty, be it a beautiful mortal woman or even a charming youth. His insatiable passion and amorousness gave rise to numerous captivating tales, each of which only underscored his immense power, unsurpassed cunning, and untamed, sometimes destructive nature. Take, for example, the well-known story of Ganymede, a youth of extraordinary beauty. Ganymede was a youth of such dazzling beauty that Zeus himself, upon seeing him, could not resist his charm. Transforming into a majestic eagle, he descended from Olympus, seized the youth in his powerful talons, and carried him to the heavens to make him his beloved. On Olympus, Ganymede became the cupbearer, serving nectar to the gods and attending banquets. To atone for this audacious act before Ganymede's father and appease his anger, Zeus gifted the king immortal horses, capable of running faster than the wind. However, this generous gesture did not quell the gossip and rumors that continued even on Olympus, where everyone discussed Zeus's unusual passion for the beautiful youth. The story of Europa is another famous and widespread legend recounting the thunderer's amorousness. Europa, the daughter of the Phoenician king, was strolling along the seashore when a snow-white bull with golden horns approached her, distinguished by its extraordinary beauty and gentle disposition. It was Zeus himself, having taken the form of the animal, to approach the beautiful maiden and win her heart. As soon as the enchanted Europa sat on its back, it carried her across the sea to the distant island of Crete, so that no one could interfere with their love. There Zeus revealed his divine nature to her, and from their union were born Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Sarpedon, who later became key figures in Greek mythology, renowned rulers, and heroes. And what about the story of Danae, the daughter of the Argive king Acrisius? Acrisius was foretold that he would die at the hand of his grandson. And to avoid the fulfillment of this prophecy, he imprisoned Danae in a high tower made of bronze, hoping that she would never be able to have children. But Zeus was not one to be stopped by impenetrable walls and iron doors. He transformed into a shower of gold, penetrated through the cracks in the tower, and in this way Danae conceived Perseus, the future hero who was destined to defeat Medusa the Gorgon and liberate the beautiful Andromeda. But one of Zeus's most renowned and revered children was Heracles, son of the mortal woman Alcmene, who was known for his extraordinary strength and courage. To get close to Alcmene and seduce her, Zeus assumed the form of her husband, Amphitryon, who was away from home at the time. From their union was born Heracles, who would later become a symbol of incredible strength, heroism, and selflessness, an example to be emulated. However, this union sparked the wrath of Hera, Zeus's lawful wife, who could not reconcile herself to his infidelities. Hera hated Heracles from the moment of his birth, which led to the many terrible trials he had to overcome to prove his strength and earn the right to immortality. Now that we have learned about Zeus, the supreme god of Olympus, we must also mention his loyal, yet no less complex and contradictory companion, Hera, goddess of marriage and family ties, patron of women. Hera is not simply Zeus's wife, not just the queen of the gods. Her story is full of passion, jealousy, strength, and an indomitable pursuit of justice, even when expressed in a cruel and vengeful form. Her image uniquely combines the majesty of the queen of the gods with deep human emotions, which makes her myth so fascinating and interesting to study. Hera was revered as the patron of marriage and family, considered the protector of the home, and the guardian of traditional values. She was a symbol of the sacred union between man and woman, embodying fidelity, love, and mutual understanding. Her name was associated with faithfulness to marital duty and protecting loved ones from all misfortunes. And she could not stand it when these values were threatened, when someone dared to violate them. But her own marriage to Zeus is a story of eternal contradiction between love and jealousy, between a sincere desire to preserve the family and a desperate struggle for self-respect, for recognition of her rights. Hera married Zeus after he resorted to trickery and deceit to obtain her consent to marry him. Legend has it that Zeus took the form of a shivering and wretched cuckoo chick, seeking warmth and protection from the cold. Hera, moved by pity for the helpless bird, pressed it to her bosom to warm it. At that very moment, Zeus suddenly assumed his true form, appeared before her in all his divine majesty, and offered her to become his wife. This deceptive maneuver marked the beginning of their complex and contradictory union, which combined sincere love, ardent passion, and endless trials destined for them. Even though Hera was the queen of the gods, holding a high position in the pantheon and being Zeus's chief companion, their relationship could rarely be called harmonious and cloudless. Zeus, known for his numerous love affairs with goddesses and mortal women, constantly caused her fury and unbearable suffering. Each of his infidelities inflicted a deep wound on her, insulted her pride, and undermined her authority as the queen of the gods. But Hera never remained indifferent to his escapades, never allowed him to violate marital fidelity with impunity. She directed her anger and thirst for revenge both at Zeus himself and at those who became the object of his passion, at his lovers and illegitimate children. Her jealousy was not just a fleeting emotion, but a powerful force capable of causing chaos and destruction, sowing fear and horror. Hera was relentless in her revenge, knew no mercy, and always sought to punish those who threatened her marriage, who encroached on her happiness, even if they were innocent victims who did not deserve such a cruel fate. Her wrath extended not only to Zeus's lovers, but also to their unfortunate children born out of wedlock, which gave rise to many tragic and instructive myths recounting her vengefulness. One of the most famous victims of Hera's boundless anger was the Titaness Leto, who became pregnant by Zeus, thereby incurring her wrath and hatred. When Hera found out about this, she forbade the earth to provide Leto with shelter for the birth of her children, condemning her to eternal wandering and torment. Leto wandered the world for a long time, suffering from unbearable pain, until she found a small floating island, Delos, which, because of its mobility, was not attached to the land and therefore did not obey Hera's curse. There, on this distant and inhospitable island, Leto gave birth to twins, Apollo and Artemis, who later became among the most revered and powerful gods of Olympus. This myth vividly demonstrates how far Hera could go in her jealousy and thirst for revenge, but also emphasizes the power of survival and resilience, the ability to overcome any obstacles on the path to one's goal. Another victim of Hera was Io, a mortal woman whom Zeus fell hopelessly in love with and to whom he gave his heart. To hide his affair with Io and avoid Hera's wrath, Zeus turned her into a white cow, hoping that his wife would not discover the deception. But Hera figured out his clever plan. She demanded that Zeus give her the cow as a gift and assigned the unfortunate Io to the hundred-eyed giant Argus to watch her incessantly and prevent her from escaping. However, Zeus, not wanting to leave his beloved in trouble, sent Hermes to free Io by killing the vigilant Argus. In revenge for this, Hera sent a terrible gadfly to Io which constantly tormented her, stinging her and not giving her peace, until she reached distant Egypt, where she finally regained her human form and escaped persecution. The most vivid illustration of Hera's boundless anger was her long-standing hatred for Heracles, Zeus's son, by the mortal woman Alcmene, whom she persecuted throughout his life. Even before his birth, Hera tried to prevent Heracles from being born by forcing the goddess of childbirth, Eileithyia, to delay Alcmene's labor in order to prevent him from being born. When this failed, she sent 2 huge snakes to kill the infant while he was sleeping in his cradle. But Heracles, possessing incredible strength, strangled the snakes with his little hands, proving his divine origin. Throughout his life, Hera constantly arranged various trials for him and plotted conspiracies trying to destroy him. It was she who made him perform the 12 famous labors to atone for the murder of his family, which she herself provoked by sending madness upon him. And yet, despite her hatred and treachery, Heracles eventually became a god, and their long-standing conflict ended in reconciliation, demonstrating the power of forgiveness and redemption. Now that we have thoroughly examined Hera's personality and her complex, contradictory relationship with Zeus, it is time to descend from the heavens to the raging waters of the seas and oceans, where his mighty brother Poseidon reigns supreme. Poseidon is a god in whose veins the very element flows, the embodiment of aquatic power. With a single command, he could grant calm waters to sailors, allowing them to sail unhindered across the seas, or raise a fierce storm capable of crushing an entire fleet, leaving no trace of it. His trident, which is a symbol of absolute power over the waters and marine depths, as well as his character, at once fickle, quick-tempered, and powerful, are a reflection of nature itself, unpredictable and untamed. Poseidon was not just the ruler of the seas, commanding the waves and winds. He was the living embodiment of their untamed power, their riotous temper. His enormous palace, built on the very bottom of the marine abyss, shone with pearls, corals, precious stones, and gold, dazzling with its splendor. However, as is often said, a calm surface often hides a storm lurking in the depths. Poseidon could be generous and bountiful to those who offered him sacrifices and praised his power, but his anger was truly devastating, knowing no bounds. He ruled the seas, earthquakes, and even horses, which, according to ancient myths, were born from the strike of his trident. His loud, rolling laughter could echo over the waves when he was pleased and in good spirits. But one strike of his trident was enough to instantly turn a calm and gentle sea into a boiling abyss, where ships sank and people prayed for salvation, hoping for a miracle. Poseidon was a god to whom mortals turned with the utmost respect and reverence, trying not to anger him because his favor could save lives and bring good luck. And his anger could destroy entire cities and doom thousands of innocent people to death. Poseidon repeatedly engaged in fierce disputes even with other gods, defending his interests and proving his case. One of the most famous myths about him is associated with Athena, the goddess of wisdom and just war, distinguished by her sharp mind and cunning. This story begins with the founding of a new city that needed a patron capable of protecting it from enemies and ensuring prosperity. Poseidon, seeking to expand his influence and increase his possessions, laid claim to this city, wanting to become its supreme protector. Athena, in turn, also wanted to become the patroness of the city, believing that she could better protect its inhabitants. To resolve this difficult dispute, the inhabitants of the city offered the gods to hold a contest. Whoever gave the city the best and most useful gift would become its rightful protector, enjoying respect and honor. Poseidon struck his mighty trident against the rock, and a spring of water gushed from it, giving life-giving moisture. However, the water in the spring turned out to be salty and completely unsuitable for drinking, which disappointed the inhabitants. He also brought the townspeople a horse, symbolizing strength and speed, suitable for war and agriculture, but his gift did not resonate in the hearts of the people, who were more in need of peace and prosperity. Athena, on the other hand, planted an olive tree, which gave the city food, shade, oil, and wood, providing its inhabitants with everything they needed for life. The townspeople appreciated her generous gift, choosing it, which caused Poseidon's anger and fury. In rage, he raised huge waves and sent a terrible storm on the city, trying to flood it and destroy all living things. But Athena managed to contain his onslaught, protecting the city from destruction. Since then, the city has been named in her honor, Athens, becoming a symbol of wisdom and justice. This instructive myth emphasizes that Poseidon, despite his immense strength and dominion over the seas, could not always overcome wisdom and strategic thinking, which often proved to be a more effective weapon. Another dramatic tale revolves around Medusa the Gorgon. According to legend, Medusa was a beautiful priestess in Athena's temple, renowned for her incredible beauty that captivated the hearts of men. Poseidon, consumed by an uncontrollable passion, seduced Medusa, or, in another version, forced himself upon her within Athena's sanctuary, defiling the sacred place. Offended by this vile act, Athena unleashed her wrath not on Poseidon, but on the unfortunate Medusa, deciding to punish her for what had transpired. She transformed Medusa into a hideous and terrifying monster, with hair of venomous snakes whose gaze turned people to stone, robbing them of life. This myth vividly illustrates Poseidon's temper and impulsiveness, his indifference to the consequences of his rash actions, which led to tragedies. His irresponsible behavior spawned a chain of tragic events, which only found resolution many years later when the courageous hero Perseus slew Medusa, severing her head. One of the most vivid and captivating stories featuring Poseidon is his involvement in Homer's famous Odyssey. Odysseus, the brave hero of the Trojan War, tragically angered Poseidon by blinding his only son, the Cyclops Polyphemus, which brought a curse upon him. This rash act marked the beginning of endless woes and trials for Odysseus, condemning him to years of wandering and hardship. Poseidon swore that Odysseus would never return home to his native Ithaca until he had atoned for his guilt and suffered due punishment for what he had done. He sent fierce storms against his ships, cast them onto distant and foreign shores, and confronted him with terrible monsters, such as Scylla and Charybdis, forcing him to wander the seas and oceans for many years, deprived of hope. Even when other gods, taking pity on Odysseus, including Zeus himself, softened and expressed a willingness to help him return home, Poseidon remained unrelenting and steadfast in his hatred, unwilling to forgive him. However, this gripping story shows that even against such a powerful and ruthless god as Poseidon, a mortal man possessing a keen mind, unyielding resilience, and incredible cunning, can survive and return home despite all obstacles. Poseidon is not only the all-powerful ruler of the seas and oceans, but also a god who embodies the very power, volatility, and lurking danger of the untamed wilderness, which cannot be conquered. His wrath taught mortals to respect the seas, to fear their turbulent nature, and to offer sacrifices to appease him, while his generosity gave hope for a calm voyage and a successful return home. Poseidon was the god to whom sailors and travelers turned, seeking calm waters or a blessing for a safe journey, offering prayers and hoping for his mercy. His myths are filled with thrilling storms, fierce conflicts, and vivid imagery that make him one of the most memorable and striking figures in the pantheon of the Olympian gods, captivating the attention of readers. Now that we have plunged into the raging sea and felt the wrath of Poseidon, it is time to ascend to the summit of Olympus and meet Athena, the goddess of wisdom and righteous warfare, the embodiment of reason and order. Athena is not simply a goddess. She is an ideal, a perfect fusion of strength, profound knowledge, and dazzling beauty that inspires admiration. Her majestic appearance immediately commanded respect and awe. Tall, gleaming armor, a shining helmet, a spear that seemed almost too light in her graceful hand, and a shield adorned with the head of Medusa the Gorgon, symbolizing her invincibility. Yet her face, with its refined features and penetrating, attentive gaze, resembled more the face of a wise thinker than that of a fierce warrior ready for bloody battle. She was the living embodiment of intellect, not merely brute physical force, demonstrating the supremacy of mind over matter. The story of her birth is a true mythological spectacle filled with drama, mystery, and wonder, igniting the imagination. Athena came into the world in an unusual way, standing as a symbol of Athena was not born from a mother's womb, but from the mind, embodying the power of intellect. When her mother Métis, the goddess of wisdom, became pregnant, Zeus, fearing a prophecy that Metis's child would become stronger than the thunderer himself and overthrow him from his throne, resolved to prevent it by any means. Without hesitation, Zeus swallowed his pregnant wife to avert the looming threat and preserve his power. But Métis, being the embodiment of wit and cunning, did not disappear without a trace. She continued to live inside Zeus, and it was she who created Athena within him, shaping her into the greatest mind and strategist, capable of making wise decisions. One day Zeus felt unbearable pain in his head, as if Olympus itself was splitting apart from the pain. He summoned Hephaestus, the god of the forge, and he, without hesitation, struck Zeus on the head with his heavy hammer to alleviate his suffering. From the resulting crack in Zeus's head, fully armed in battle armor, with a spear in her hand and a warlike cry, Athena burst forth, revealing herself to the world. Her birth was like a sudden dawn, abrupt, dazzling, and unstoppable. She did not simply come into existence. Her emergence proclaimed that wisdom always goes hand in hand with strength, and that only the judicious application of force can benefit the world. Athena was not a goddess who fought for the sake of battle itself, for bloodshed and destruction. She acted as a strategist, skillfully planning military operations, as a wise mentor, offering valuable advice, and as a reliable protector of those who sincerely sought her help and needed it. Her active participation in the fates of great heroes, offering them assistance and support, made her one of the most revered and beloved goddesses of ancient Greece. One of the heroes to whom Athena held a particular fondness and affection was Odysseus, famed for his cunning and resourcefulness. She called him the most intelligent and quick-witted of mortals, admiring his ingenuity. When he wandered the seas, pursued by Poseidon's wrath, she repeatedly guided him, gave wise counsel, and protected him from imminent doom, helping him avoid dangers. It was thanks to Athena that Odysseus was able to survive the encounter with the terrible monsters Scylla and Charybdis and remain alive. And her ingenious and brilliant plans helped him to penetrate the impregnable Troy, achieve victory, and finally return to his native Ithaca, to his family. But her help was never unconditional and unequivocal. She did not provide support to just anyone. Athena respected and valued those who thought for themselves, who demonstrated intelligence, resourcefulness, and unwavering determination in achieving their goals. When Perseus embarked on a perilous journey to slay Medusa the Gorgon, Athena gave him her mirrored shield, saying, "Look not at her directly, but at her reflection in the shield, lest you turn to stone." This wise advice saved his life, allowing him to avoid death. Perseus, following her advice, was able to behead Medusa and bring her head as a gift to Athena, who adorned her battle shield with it. This famous shield, known as the Aegis, became a symbol of her invincibility, wisdom, and divine power, protecting her from enemies. Athena was not merely a goddess of war, personifying destruction and violence. She embodied creation, wisdom, justice, and prosperity, patronizing the sciences and arts. Her olive tree, which she gave to the inhabitants of Athens, became a symbol of peace, fertility, well-being, and strength, reminding them that wisdom does not destroy but creates, and only the judicious management of force can bring benefit. Her constant companion was the wise owl, a bird that sees in the dark and symbolizes insight and the ability to see what is hidden from the eyes of others. Even on the coins of ancient Greece, the image of Athena's owl was a symbol of wealth, protection, and prosperity, enjoying universal respect. Athena is more than just a goddess, occupying her place in the pantheon of Olympian gods. She is the living embodiment of what an ideal leader, worthy of admiration and emulation, should be: intelligent, fair, strong in spirit, wise, and judicious. She did not seek fame in bloody battles, but her presence on the battlefield struck terror into enemies, causing them to retreat in fear. Her appearance was majestic but not intimidating, and her voice was confident but not loud, inspiring trust. In her story, there is no place for pointless cruelty and senseless violence. There is only wisdom, justice, and valuable lessons that she imparted to both gods and mortals, striving to guide them on the right path. Athena was and remains an eternal symbol that strength is not only a weapon, but also reason, and wisdom is capable of conquering more than any army and remaining in the memory of posterity. After meeting Athena, who embodies wisdom and creative power, we now delve into a world of passion, war, and chaos, where its own laws reign. A world dominated by Ares and Aphrodite, so different and dissimilar to each other. Their union, full of contradictions, seething passions, and cunning intrigues, remains one of the most dramatic and captivating stories in Greek mythology, attracting the attention of readers. It symbolizes the eternal clash of destruction and creation, untamed aggression and dazzling beauty, demonstrating the complexity of human nature. Ares, the god of war, embodied the unbridled fury of battle, the thirst for destruction, and the chaos that inevitably accompanies war, sowing death and fear. Tall, with a powerful physique, radiating strength, he was the living embodiment of physical might, inspiring awe. His thick hair, resembling blazing flames, perfectly matched his bright and piercing gaze, which exuded undisguised threat and danger. He wore bronze armor, shining like the reflection of the setting sun, and his favorite weapon was a spear, which he held with confidence and pride, ready to engage in battle at any moment. On the other end of this spectrum resided Aphrodite, a graceful and radiant goddess, exuding a beauty and harmony that effortlessly captivated hearts, not only of mere mortals but also of the mighty gods who were unable to resist her allure. Her beauty was almost supernatural, radiant skin, hair flowing like sunbeams, and eyes that reflected the bottomless depths of love, passion, and desire. She was the living embodiment of sensuality and harmony, her presence calming even the most wrathful and warlike warriors, pacifying their hearts. And yet, these two such different and dissimilar beings were inextricably linked, their fates intertwined. Their union was like the clash of two mighty elements, giving birth to something unique and astonishing, striking the imagination. Their tumultuous and passionate affair remained a secret for a long time, until Hephaestus, Aphrodite's lawful husband, decided to use his cunning and ingenuity to expose their liaison and avenge the betrayal. Hephaestus was the god of blacksmiths, renowned for his unsurpassed skill and ability to create wondrous things. Despite his physical imperfections, he limped on one leg. His mind was sharp and perceptive, and his hands were capable of creating true masterpieces, unsurpassed by anyone. When he suspected Aphrodite of infidelity, he began working on his most ingenious and insidious invention to catch the lovers in the act. He created a gossamer and sturdy net of invisible metal, so fine and light that it was impossible to detect or break. It was virtually intangible. This treacherous net he set up in Aphrodite's chambers, where she usually met with her lover Ares, secretly from her husband. On the very day when their passion flared up anew with renewed vigor, the trap snapped shut, depriving them of their freedom. Ares and Aphrodite found themselves inextricably bound by the magic net, unable to move or break free. Hephaestus immediately summoned the other gods of Olympus to witness their humiliation and mock them, rejoicing in his revenge. But instead of disdain and sympathy for the wronged husband, Olympus met them with loud laughter and jeers. Even Zeus, known for his seriousness, could not help but smile, seeing how the mighty and formidable Ares and the beautiful and seductive Aphrodite found themselves in such a ridiculous and amusing situation, caught in the trap. One of the most interesting and noteworthy aspects of the myths about Ares are his children, born from different goddesses and mortal women, Phobos, horror, and Deimos, fear. They personified those strong and negative feelings that inevitably accompany any conflict and bloody battle, filling people's hearts with fear and terror. Phobos was the god of fear, instilling terror in the hearts of people. His appearance inspired genuine primal dread. Tall, gaunt, with pale skin like mist, he inspired dread. His eyes burned like red-hot coals, and his face was disfigured by a perpetual grimace of horror, giving no peace. He always accompanied his father Ares on the battlefield, instilling fear and panic in the hearts of enemies, causing them to tremble with terror. But Phobos did not simply threaten his enemies. He did far more. He was the one who made warriors doubt their own strength and abilities, who evoked a paralyzing fear that made them drop their weapons, flee the battlefield, and surrender to the mercy of the victor. Deimos, unlike his brother Phobos, embodied panic and chaos, bringing confusion to the ranks of enemies. His physique was massive, as if he himself consisted of a dense, fear-inducing shadow. His face was constantly distorted by a malevolent grin, and his movements were sharp and menacing, giving no peace. He sowed chaos among the enemies of Ares, depriving them of reason and plunging them into madness, forcing them to kill each other. These two terrible beings were constant companions of Ares, symbolizing his destructive nature, ruthlessness, and cruelty. They reminded mortals that war is not only a physical battle, but also a battle of mind and spirit, in which the one who maintains composure wins. Everything about Ares spoke of destruction, his irascibility, unbridled rage, thirst for battles and bloodshed, which often knew no bounds and could not be controlled. Aphrodite, on the other hand, was a symbol of harmony, beauty, and love, capable of healing. She could stop the most brutal and bloody battle with just a glance, forcing warriors to lay down their weapons. But in their union, there seemed to be a certain balance, offsetting their shortcomings. Even if they constantly contradicted each other, they somehow complemented each other, creating harmony. Ares and Aphrodite together were like a storm and the rainbow after it, like the sound of thunder and the silence that follows it, bringing with it tranquility. Their captivating story reminds us that love and war are two inseparable sides of the same coin, two powerful forces that govern the world, directing it. This passionate and scandalous affair remains one of the most emotional and controversial stories of Olympus, attracting the attention of readers. It shows that even immortal gods, possessing immense power, can succumb to their passions, make mistakes, and find beauty and harmony in the most unexpected and unpredictable places. Ares and Aphrodite are a perpetual reminder that none of us can be only destruction or only creation, only good or only evil. We are a complex and contradictory mix of these beginnings, and that is what makes us truly alive and interesting, capable of great accomplishments. After the turbulent passions of Ares and Aphrodite, we move on to a calmer and more grounded, but no less interesting hero of Olympus, Hephaestus, the god of blacksmithing, fire, and crafts, the patron of artisans. His captivating story is an inspiring tale of how resilience, unwavering talent, and hard work can transform even the most difficult life circumstances into an opportunity to create something great and become famous throughout the world. Hephaestus is a god whose skillful hands forged true masterpieces, striking the imagination, and whose fate was as tempered and durable as the metal in his fiery forge. Hephaestus came into the world under rather unusual and even tragic circumstances, which predetermined his future life. According to one of the most common versions of the myth, he was the son of Hera, who conceived him without the participation of Zeus, out of jealousy of his independent birth of Athena, in order to prove her independence. However, despite his divine origin and the high position of his mother, Hephaestus was born lame, which caused Hera to feel disgust and aversion towards him. Not wanting to see her imperfect and defective child, she ruthlessly threw him from Olympus, condemning him to certain death. Hephaestus fell from the heavens and, having flown a great distance, ended up on a distant land where he was accidentally discovered by the sea nymphs Thetis and Eurynome, who took pity on the unfortunate infant. They sheltered him, surrounding him with care and love, and gave him the opportunity to discover his hidden talent, to become a great master. Instead of complaining about the injustice of fate and grieving about his imperfection, Hephaestus began to work diligently on his craft, honing his skills. His forge, artfully arranged under volcanoes, became the magical place where the greatest artifacts of ancient Greek mythology were born, admired for their beauty and functionality. After many years spent away from Olympus, Hephaestus decided at all costs to regain his place among the gods and avenge his cruel mother. And he did it with the help of his genius, showing cunning and craftiness. He created a golden throne of extraordinary beauty, decorated with precious stones, and sent it as a gift to Hera on Olympus, hoping to lure her into a trap. When Hera, admiring the beauty of the throne, sat on it, its ingenious mechanism immediately snapped shut, and she found herself trapped, inextricably chained to the throne. None of the gods, despite their strength, could free her, as if the throne was bewitched. Then the gods, realizing their helplessness, turned with supplication to Hephaestus himself, begging him for help and promising forgiveness. Hephaestus, after listening to their requests, agreed to free Hera from captivity, but only on one condition, that he would be allowed to return to Olympus, take his rightful place among the gods, and enjoy all the rights. Zeus, impressed by his mind, genius, and unsurpassed skill, gladly gave his consent, returning Hephaestus to Olympus. Since then, Hephaestus has become an integral part of the Olympian pantheon, enjoying universal respect and admiration. Hephaestus was not just a blacksmith skillfully wielding his craft. He was a true creator whose products were striking in their complexity, functionality, and incredible beauty, captivating. His skillful hands created countless artifacts that became central elements in many well-known myths. One of the most famous and impressive creations of Hephaestus was the armor of Achilles, forged by him at the request of Thetis, the hero's mother, who asked for help. After Achilles lost his old armor, captured by enemies, grief-stricken by the tragic death of his loyal friend Patroclus, Thetis turned to Hephaestus for help. Hephaestus, moved by her grief, created armor that was not just a reliable defense against enemy weapons, but a true work of art, striking the imagination. The shield of Achilles, for example, was artfully decorated with intricate images of earth, sun, moon, stars, and various scenes from the daily lives of people, showcasing the beauty of the world. This magical shield symbolized the whole world, uniting the harmony of war and peace, reminding of the transience of all things. When Achilles put on this magnificent armor, he began to look like a deity, and its magical power helped him win many victories, glorifying his name. One of the key myths in which Hephaestus played an important and tragic role was the story of how the Titan Prometheus stole fire for people in order to alleviate their existence. Fire, which was a symbol of light, warmth, progress, and civilization, was a strict monopoly of the gods, and mere mortals were strictly forbidden to use it, to keep it in their homes. Prometheus, a Titan distinguished by his empathy for people and compassion for their plight, decided to correct this blatant injustice by bestowing fire upon them. Hephaestus, as the guardian of the divine fire and the patron of blacksmiths, was the one who ensured its use on Olympus, keeping it ever alight. His skillfully equipped forge was the primary source of the divine flame, and it was from there that Prometheus stole a spark of fire to give to humankind. According to ancient legend, Prometheus used a hollow reed to conceal the stolen fire inside and secretly carry it to Earth, bestowing it upon humans. When the flame was in the hands of mortals, they were able to keep warm during cold winter nights, cook their food, defend themselves from wild beasts, and develop crafts, thus improving their lives. However, this noble act incurred the wrath of Almighty Zeus, who did not tolerate disobedience. As cruel punishment, Zeus ordered Hephaestus to create the beautiful but treacherous Pandora, the first woman who brought all the troubles and misfortunes to humanity by opening her infamous jar filled with evil. In addition, Zeus personally subjected Prometheus to terrible punishment, chaining him to a steep cliff in the mountains, where a huge eagle flew in every day to torment his liver, which constantly grew back, condemning him to eternal torment. The irony of this whole tragic situation was that Hephaestus, himself once banished from Olympus and humiliated by his mother, was forced by order of Zeus to create strong chains for Prometheus, condemning him to suffering. Hephaestus is a shining symbol of how a person can turn their weaknesses and shortcomings into a source of great strength, allowing them to reach unprecedented heights. Despite his lameness, humiliation, and loneliness, he proved his worth to both gods and people, creating amazing objects that had a huge impact on destinies and the course of history. His captivating story reminds us that greatness is born not from external strength, but from talent, perseverance, hard work, and the ability to overcome any difficulties along the way. Each of his creations is not just an ordinary thing, but a symbol of strength of spirit, hope, harmony, and faith in a better future. His skillfully forged armor protected brave heroes from death. His ingenious inventions inspired people to new achievements, and his forge became the magical place where ancient Greek mythology itself was forged, full of exciting stories. Hephaestus is the god who taught people that fire can be not only a force of destruction and death, but also a force of creation, giving warmth and light. After these fascinating tales of Hephaestus's blacksmithing skills and the starlight sparks forged in legends, it is time to meet another amazing and harmonious pair of deities of Olympus, Apollo and Artemis. These twins, children of Zeus and the Titaness Leto, symbolize light and darkness, art and nature, divination and hunting, embodying contrasting forces. Their roles in Greek mythology have always been closely intertwined with maintaining balance in the world, where one reflects the clarity of day while the other guards the secrets of night. Apollo, the god of sunlight, art, music, poetry, and divination, always shines brighter than the rest, commanding attention. His image is the embodiment of the ideal of youthful beauty, strength, grace, and refinement, inspiring admiration. Imagine a tall, slender youth with golden hair that shimmers like the morning sun's rays, and eyes filled with the light of wisdom and knowledge. He wears a golden toga and holds a lyre in his hands, a symbol of music and art, or a bow and arrows, emblems of precision, power, and justice. But his dazzling light not only warms, but can also be relentless, scorching those who cannot bear it. Apollo is the god of clarity and truth, which, as is well known, sometimes wounds far more deeply than any weapon, bringing pain. One of the most significant and well-known aspects of Apollo's divine power was his close connection with divination, allowing him to predict the future. His temple at Delphi, located on the slope of Mount Parnassus, was considered the heart of spiritual life in ancient Greece, its most important and revered site. Crowds of people flocked to here from all over the world to hear the prophecies of the Pythia and learn their fate, hoping for a better future. Myth tells that when young Apollo first came to Delphi, he encountered a terrible monster, the giant serpent Python, who lived near a sacred spring and terrorized the people. This sinister source embodied chaos, disorder, and the unbridled power of wild nature, threatening all life. Apollo, seeking to make this place sacred and safe for people, entered into a deadly battle with the enormous python, armed with his bow and arrows. His accurate arrows struck the monstrous snake, and since then the spring became pure and safe, and the temple a revered place of clairvoyance and prophecy. The priestess Pythia, intoxicated by the smoke of laurel leaves, uttered her prophecies, which were not always understandable and clear to ordinary mortals, but always significant and truthful, coming true. Apollo was also an unsurpassed musician and singer, delighting everyone with his talent. His lyre, skillfully crafted as a gift by Hermes, sounded so magical that even the immortal gods dwelling on Olympus would freeze, listening to its beautiful melodies, filling their hearts with joy. However, not everyone recognized his unsurpassed superiority and talent, considering themselves no worse than he. The satyr Marsyas, known for his audacity, dared to challenge Apollo himself, presumptuously claiming that his playing on the aulos was no worse, and even better. Apollo, confident of his victory, agreed to the competition, but on the condition that both would play their musical instruments upside down. Marsyas, lacking sufficient skill, could not cope with this difficult task and failed miserably before Apollo, humiliated. And Apollo cruelly punished him for his audacity, flaying him alive, reminding all mortals that divine music and art are unattainable for ordinary people. Now let's talk about Artemis, Apollo's twin sister, who was no less interesting and mysterious. She was the living embodiment of wildness, freedom, and independence, recognizing no limitations. Her hair flows like moonlight, and her eyes shine with the cold glitter of distant stars, mesmerizing with their beauty. She wears a light and comfortable tunic, ideal for hunting in the forest, and behind her back is always a silver bow and a full quiver of arrows, ready to strike their target. Her faithful companions are wild beasts, who follow her everywhere as their patroness and protector, without fear. One of the most famous and tragic myths associated with Artemis is her revenge on Niobe, a proud and arrogant queen who dared to publicly humiliate her mother, the Titaness Leto, insulting her. Niobe, proud of her power and wealth, claimed that she was better and more worthy than Leto because she had far more children, which made her more significant. This audacity aroused the righteous anger of Artemis and her brother Apollo, who decided to avenge the insult to their mother. Apollo and Artemis immediately descended from Olympus to Earth to punish Niobe for her pride and cruelty, teaching her a harsh lesson. Apollo destroyed all her sons, striking them with his accurate arrows, and Artemis, in turn, killed all her daughters, leaving almost no one alive. Leaving alive only one daughter so that she would remember what she had done and suffer all her life, they made it clear to all mortals that pride and arrogance before the gods would always be severely punished, and justice would prevail. Niobe, maddened by grief, fled to the mountains, where, according to the myth, she turned into a rock from which tears constantly flow, symbolizing her eternal sorrow and remorse for what she had done. Artemis vowed to preserve her virginity, avoiding any bonds of marriage and dedicating her life to serving nature. She lived free and independent, surrounded by faithful nymphs who accompanied her on fascinating hunts, sharing joys and dangers with her. Her independence, strength of spirit, and close connection with wild nature made her an ideal for many young girls who aspired to be as free, strong, and independent as she was. The story of Apollo and Artemis is a vivid symbol of the inseparable unity of opposites, demonstrating the complexity of the world. Light cannot exist without shadow, just as music is impossible without silence, and good without evil. Apollo inspires us to strive for clarity, harmony, and art, developing our mind and soul, while Artemis reminds us of the great power of wild nature, of the need to carefully protect the world around us, preserving its beauty. Their captivating stories are a valuable lesson that life is impossible without a harmonious balance between opposites, without unity. Light and darkness, day and night, civilization and wild nature. All these elements create that very harmony that underlies the universe, maintaining its stability. After the touching story of the greatness of Apollo and Artemis, let's immerse ourselves in one of the most touching, sad, and emotional myths of ancient Greek mythology, the story of Demeter and Persephone, mother and daughter. This captivating story is not only about a treacherous abduction, but also about the eternal cycle of nature, the inevitable change of seasons, the fragile balance between life and death, which are inextricably linked. In those distant times when the earth was young and fertile, and the gods walked among mortal people, helping and punishing them, the story of a loving mother and her beautiful daughter, of tragic loss and subsequent rebirth, became the foundation of the eternal cycle of nature, explaining the changing seasons. This story tells of Demeter and Persephone, two goddesses whose fates became closely intertwined with the somber and mysterious ruler of Olympus, Hades, lord of the underworld. Their myth is not just a beautiful legend, but a profound explanation of life itself, its mysteries and continuous changes which are inevitable. Demeter, the powerful goddess of fertility and agriculture, was the living embodiment of the earth itself, giving life to all living things. Her hair, resembling ripe wheat, flowed in golden waves in the wind, and her caring hands generously gave the world abundant harvests, preventing people from starving. Fields turned green and bloomed, trees bore fruit, and grateful people offered her laudatory prayers, thanking her for her generosity. But beneath this beautiful image of a kind Mother Nature lurked a tremendous power, like a destructive storm, ready to sweep away anything in its path if her beloved daughter Persephone was threatened, burning everything in her wake. Persephone, the young and beautiful goddess of spring, whose beauty could outshine even the brightest and most exquisite flowers, captivated everyone with her charm. She adored wandering through blossoming meadows, gathering bouquets of daffodils, tulips, and delicate roses to adorn herself. Her ringing, happy laughter was like the chime of crystal bells, and her light steps seemed to awaken the slumbering nature to new life, filling it with joy. But as often happens in life, this unearthly beauty attracted not only admiration and good feelings, but also a dark desire to possess her. From his gloomy underground kingdom, located deep beneath the earth, Hades had been watching the beautiful Persephone for a long time. The ruler of the dead, a god whose name inspired terror and dread in all living beings, was the elder brother of Zeus and Poseidon, possessing immense power. He was not cruel or malicious by nature, but his somber and joyless realm of the dead made him isolated and misunderstood, inspiring fear. His stern and severe features, dark robes, and the three-headed dog Cerberus, guarding the gates to the underworld, only amplified this ominous image, frightening mortals. But even Hades, in his cold and gloomy realm, devoid of joy and light, proved capable of a strong and sincere feeling: love. He fell head over heels in love with the young and beautiful Persephone, seeing in her a light of hope, and resolved to make her his queen at all costs, sharing his throne with her. One day, as Persephone was carefree wandering through a blossoming meadow, her attention was drawn to an unusually beautiful daffodil standing out among the other flowers. Its petals shone like distant stars in the night sky, and enchanted by its beauty, Persephone reached out to pluck it and admire it. At that fateful moment, the earth suddenly split open, and from the resulting abyss, a chariot drawn by gloomy black horses, spewing flames, burst forth with a roar. Hades himself sat upon it, dressed in black robes. His eyes burned with determination and passion, and before the frightened Persephone could scream and call for help, he swiftly seized her and carried her off to his dark and joyless realm of the dead. The meadow instantly emptied, deprived of its joy. The flowers drooped, froze, and withered, and silence engulfed everything around, foreshadowing misfortune. When Demeter discovered, with horror, that her beloved daughter had vanished without a trace, her heart shattered into tiny pieces from grief. She immediately left Olympus and began a desperate search for her daughter, stopping at nothing. Her grief was so great and all-consuming that the earth ceased to bloom and bear fruit, refusing to yield crops. The fields dried up, the harvest perished, the trees shed their leaves, and the rivers and lakes dried up, turning to dust. She wandered aimlessly through the world in search of an answer until she accidentally met the all-seeing Helios, the god of the sun, who saw everything that happened on earth. He told her the whole truth about what had happened. Persephone had been treacherously abducted by Hades with the tacit consent of Zeus, who had given his daughter to his brother in marriage. Angered and betrayed, Demeter vowed that the earth would remain barren and lifeless until her beloved daughter returned to her, taking back her blessing. People began to suffer from hunger. Sacrifices to the gods ceased, and even Olympus itself was under serious threat, deprived of gifts. Zeus, realizing the seriousness of the situation and the impending catastrophe, had to personally intervene in what was happening to prevent the destruction of the world. He immediately sent his faithful messenger Hermes to the gloomy underworld to return Persephone to her inconsolable mother Demeter, who was begging for mercy. At this time, Hades, understanding that he would not be able to hold Persephone by force against her will and risked incurring the wrath of Zeus, decided to act cunningly and treacherously in order to keep her by his side. Before releasing Persephone, he offered her a sweet pomegranate, artfully prepared. Persephone, suspecting nothing and trusting Hades, ate several pomegranate seeds, unaware of the consequences. The eaten seeds forever bound her to the underworld, depriving her of the opportunity to fully return to the world of the living. Zeus, being a just ruler, made a wise decision that satisfied both parties. Persephone would spend part of the year, spring and summer, with her loving mother Demeter, delighting her with her presence, and the other part, autumn and winter, in the underworld with her husband Hades as the queen of the dead. When Persephone returned to her mother Demeter, nature came to life and flourished, filling the world with beauty and harmony. Flowers blossomed, trees bloomed, fields were covered with greenery, and the sun shone brighter. Long-awaited spring and warm summer arrived, bringing joy. But when Persephone was forced to return to the gloomy realm of Hades, Demeter began to bitterly mourn her, plunging the earth into a cold and barren winter, full of sorrow. The myth of Demeter and Persephone is not just a tragic story about a treacherous abduction. It is a deep poem about life and death, about the inevitability of loss, and about the eternal hope for rebirth, offering comfort. Demeter is the earth itself, fertile and generous, who grieves and mourns the loss, but always rises again, giving life to all living things. Persephone is the sprouts that appear in the spring, only to die in the winter, to bloom again in the spring, symbolizing the eternal cycle of life. Hades reminds us that darkness is inseparable from light, and death is an integral part of the great cycle of life, without which existence is impossible. This instructive myth, like nature itself, teaches us that after every harsh winter, the long-awaited spring inevitably comes, and after every end, there is a new beginning, giving hope. After the deep and serious stories of Demeter, Persephone, and Hades, let's take a break from sad thoughts and get acquainted with the gods who added lightness, cunning, fun, and awe to ancient and Greek myths, entertaining readers. Hermes and Dionysus are two completely different gods in their characters, but both are connected with something very human: movement, ingenuity, the thirst for joy, and bright holidays. If there was a true jack-of-all-trades among the Greek gods, capable of handling any task, it would definitely be Hermes, distinguished by his ingenuity. The son of Zeus and the nymph Maia, he was born in a secluded cave where his mother desperately tried to hide from the persecution of the jealous Hera, who was thirsting for revenge. But even in infancy, the young Hermes immediately proved to everyone that he could not be kept within the usual bounds. He was unpredictable. His life from the very beginning was full of jokes, cunning on tricks, and ingenious inventions that amazed the imagination with their originality. Imagine this funny picture. Barely born, Hermes, not wanting to lie in swaddling clothes, deftly climbed out of them and went on his first exciting adventure, fearing nothing. He accidentally saw a herd of sacred cows belonging to his brother Apollo, and instead of admiring their beauty, he decided to steal them, just for fun. But of course, the young god could not act simply and banally. He always showed ingenuity. To carefully cover his tracks and avoid punishment, he made all the cows walk backward, and he cleverly camouflaged his own tracks with branches so that no one would guess. When Apollo returned and realized that his entire herd had disappeared without a trace, he flew into a rage and began searching. Finding Hermes in the cave with Maia, he immediately accused him of brazen theft, demanding that he return the cows immediately. But what did the unflappable baby Hermes do? He smiled sweetly at his brother and began to play on an artfully made lyre, which he had just invented, using an empty turtle shell and sheep guts as strings. The music was so beautiful, melodious, and enchanting that the angry Apollo not only forgave him for the brazen theft, but also gladly took the lyre in exchange for peace, making up. Since then, Hermes has been revered as the god of speed, commerce, cunning, eloquence, and the patron saint of travelers, merchants, and thieves, as well as the guide of the souls of the dead to the afterlife. He was usually depicted with winged sandals on his feet, allowing him to move quickly, and a winged hat on his head, and in his hands he held a caduceus, a magic wand entwined with two snakes, symbolizing wisdom. This magic wand was not only a symbol of his divine power, but could also put people to sleep or, conversely, calm them, bringing peace. His incredible speed and irrepressible ingenuity made him indispensable on Olympus, performing complex assignments. Zeus, who trusted him more than anyone, entrusted him with the most complex and delicate tasks requiring cunning, and grateful mortals thanked him for his patronage, bringing gifts. Hermes patronized not only courageous travelers and enterprising merchants, but even cunning thieves, helping them in their difficult business, which brought a smile. It's funny that Hermes was not only the god of scammers and deception, but also an excellent mediator, possessing the gift of persuasion. He skillfully helped people and gods find common ground, settling conflicts and resolving disputes. And his role in myths often came down to resolving the most complex and confusing situations, saving the day. For example, it was he who led the souls of dead heroes to the gloomy underworld of Hades, and he also helped the brave Perseus in his dangerous battle with Medusa the Gorgon, lending him his magical winged sandals, allowing him to fly. Dionysus is an unusual god who seems to embody life itself in all its glory. Bright, passionate, sometimes chaotic, unpredictable, but always filled with strong emotions. Impressive. His birth in itself was unusual and tragic, predetermining his difficult fate. He was the son of the almighty Zeus and the beautiful mortal woman Semele, which aroused the wrath of Hera. But the tragedy happened even before his birth, cutting short Semele's life. Hera, learning of another act of infidelity by Zeus, cunningly persuaded the naive Semele to ask Zeus to appear to her in all his true divine form in order to prove his love. When the trusting Zeus granted her wish, Semele, unable to withstand his dazzling radiance, was burned to ashes by his divine power. However, Zeus, saddened by her death, managed to save their unborn child, sewing him into his thigh, where Dionysus spent the remaining months until his birth. Thus, he became twice born, which made him special and set him apart from the other gods. Dionysus grew up under the care of kind nymphs on Mount Nysa, far from Olympus. From a young age, he showed an irrepressible passion for nature and skillful winemaking, mastering its secrets. He taught people to cultivate juicy grapes and turn them into a wondrous drink, which was more than just wine, inspiring delight. It was true magic in a glass. Wine could relax, bring joy, merriment, and inspiration, but also unleash a storm of strong emotions, revealing the deepest and most hidden feelings, freeing people from inhibitions. Dionysus happily traveled the world, spreading the culture of winemaking and teaching people. His entourage was as unusual and eccentric as he was. Cheerful satyrs with goat legs, intoxicated maenads, women in a state of ecstasy, and even wild beasts who fearlessly followed him everywhere. His boisterous festivals, known as Dionysia or Bacchanalia, as another name for Dionysus's Bacchus, turned into frenzied and wild revelries with dancing until exhaustion, merry songs, and theatrical performances where there was no room for boredom. Theater, by the way, also came into being thanks to Dionysus, in whose honor performances were staged. Tragedies and comedies were performed in his honor, which later became an important and integral part of ancient Greek culture, influencing the arts. One of the most vivid and instructive stories of Dionysus is linked to the tragic fate of King Pentheus, who decided to ban festivals in honor of the god, considering them immoral and indecent. But Dionysus, deeply angered by this decision, sent madness upon the proud Pentheus, and then tricked him into watching a Bacchic ritual disguised in women's clothing. When Pentheus, unable to bear it any longer, tried to intervene, the maenads, losing their minds, tore him to pieces, mistaking him for a wild beast. This instructive myth reminds us that we must not ignore human passions and natural instincts, suppressing them, as this can lead to dire consequences. After these captivating stories of gods filling the world with cunning, sincere joy, and exquisite art, it's time to return to the origins, to the beginning of time. The Olympian young, whom we know and revere today, did not always rule the world, nor were they all powerful. Their reign began with a bloody great war, the Titanomachy, a brutal battle of generations, where the young and ambitious generation of Olympian gods rebelled against their mighty ancestors, the Titans, who ruled the world. It was a desperate struggle not just for power, but also for the establishment of a new order that would forever change the fate of the universe, turning it upside down. When Zeus came of age and learned about his difficult destiny, he firmly resolved to rescue his brothers and sisters, imprisoned by Cronus. With the help of his wise mother, Rhea, he slipped Cronus a special emetic potion, forcing him to regurgitate the children he had swallowed earlier, granting them freedom. They were finally freed from captivity and immediately sided with Zeus, swearing allegiance to him. Thus began the great and bloody war, The Titanomachy, a battle of generations that lasted for 10 long years and shook the foundations of the universe. On one side stood the mighty Titans, led by Cronus, endowed with immense power. These ancient and invincible beings possessed colossal might, and each of their furious attacks shook the earth, causing earthquakes. Among them were the Titan Atlas, doomed to eternally hold the celestial sphere on his shoulders, the Titan Oceanus, personifying the world oceans surrounding the earth, and the Titan Hyperion, the embodiment of bright light. On the other side, they were opposed by the young and ambitious Olympians, led by Zeus, full of determination. Their powers were only beginning to unfold, but they had an important advantage: unity, cohesion, cunning, and an unyielding will to win, which helped them. Zeus understood perfectly well that he could not defeat the mighty Titans, who surpassed them in strength, alone. Then, gathering his courage, he went to the darkest depths of Tartarus, where the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires were imprisoned, to ask them for help. The Cyclopes, one-eyed giants, were unmatched masters of blacksmithing, distinguished by incredible talent. In gratitude for their liberation from gloomy imprisonment, they forged for Zeus his main and most powerful weapon, dazzling lightning for Poseidon, a mighty trident, and for Hades, a helmet of invisibility, making him unseen. The Hecatoncheires, terrifying giants with hundreds of arms, became living war machines, tirelessly throwing huge boulders at enemies and disrupting their plans, destroying entire armies of Titans. The battlefield unfolded on the peaks of sacred Mount Olympus and in the gloomy valleys of the earth, encompassing the entire world. Zeus rained lightning down on his enemies, illuminating the sky with bright flashes of light, instilling terror. Poseidon, brandishing his mighty trident, unleashed enormous tsunamis and devastating earthquakes, destroying everything in his path. Hades, invisible thanks to his magical helmet, penetrated the very ranks of the Titans, sowing panic, fear, and destruction. The Hecatoncheires threw hundreds of huge boulders into the ranks of enemies, breaking their battle formations and not giving them a chance to recover. The Cyclopes, right on the battlefield, tirelessly forged new weapons for the Olympians, helping them maintain their advantage and turn the tide of battle. The Titans responded with their incredible power. Their powerful blows shook the earth, and loud cries echoed throughout the universe, inspiring horror. Atlas, continuing to hold the heavens on his shoulders, tried to deprive the Olympians of power. Hyperion blinded them with his bright light, and Cronus, armed with his sharp sickle, bravely fought to the last breath. But the youth, speed, superiority in tactics, and ingenuity of the Olympians gradually began to prevail, tipping the scales in their favor. After 10 long years of bloody and fierce battle, Zeus and his faithful allies won a long-awaited victory. The Titans, suffering a crushing defeat, were cast down into gloomy Tartarus, surrounded by impregnable walls and a river of blazing fire, offering no hope of salvation. The Hecatoncheires remained on guard in Tartarus so that none of the Titans could rise again from the abyss and sow chaos. This long-awaited victory marked the beginning of a new world order, establishing the dominance of the Olympian gods. Zeus became the supreme ruler of heaven and earth. Poseidon gained power over the seas, and Hades, over the underworld of the dead, fairly dividing power. The Titanomachy is not just an ancient myth about a cruel war, but a deep and instructive story about the change of generations, about the struggle of the new with the old, about breaking with case in order to establish order and harmony. The Olympians brought to the world not only new power, but also just laws, which became the basis for achieving harmony and prosperity. This ancient myth reminds us that every great change leading to a better future requires enormous effort, courage, and dedication. But it is through struggle that new beginnings are born, changing the world. After the glorious victory over the Titans and the establishment of a new order on Olympus, it would seem that the gods had gained eternal power, limitless authority, and perfect harmony, and that nothing could overshadow their existence. But even immortal gods possessing immense power could not avoid discord, fierce rivalry, and cunning intrigues that poisoned their lives. The Olympians, despite their greatness, immortality, and divine origin, possessed human weaknesses that prevented them from living in peace. They were jealous, angry, passionately in love, and made mistakes for which they later had to pay. These strong emotions manifested themselves vividly during the bloody Trojan War, one of the most famous and large-scale conflicts, where the guys divided into two warring camps actively interfered in the fates of mere mortals, deciding the outcome of battles. Their personal ambitions, irrepressible anger, and all-consuming love became the invisible threads that controlled events on the battlefield, exerting influence. It all began with a golden apple thrown at a feast. All the Olympian gods and goddesses were invited to the lavish wedding of Peleus, a mortal hero in Thetis, a beautiful sea goddess, except for one, the treacherous Eris, the goddess of discord and chaos, known for her malicious disposition. Offended by her deliberate exclusion from the guest list, Eris decided to take cruel revenge on everyone, setting a cunning trap, throwing a golden apple at the feast with the inscription, "To the fairest," sparking envy. This proved sufficient to sow chaos, discord, and animosity among the goddesses, disrupting harmony. Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite, the three greatest and most influential goddesses of Olympus, immediately began a fierce dispute over who should own this apple, considering themselves worthy. Unwilling to take anyone's side in this dangerous conflict, risking incurring the wrath of others, the wise Zeus entrusted the choice to the young and handsome Trojan prince Paris, known for his beauty, hoping for his fairness. Each of the goddesses, desperately wanting to win, offered him something valuable in exchange for his vote, tempting him. Athena promised Paris wisdom and invincible military power. Hera, limitless authority and immense wealth. And Aphrodite, knowing his weakness, promised the love of the most beautiful woman on earth, Helen, the wife of the Spartan king Menelaus. Paris, blinded by Aphrodite's promise, chose her, giving her the golden apple, which aroused the furious anger of Athena and Hera, who did not forgive him. From that fateful moment, the Olympian gods divided into two warring camps, supporting different sides. Athena and Hera, driven by hatred, sided with the Greeks, deciding to help them. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, just war and strategy, became an indispensable advisor to the Greek military leaders, providing assistance. She helped develop brilliant battle plans, inspired valiant warriors to feats of bravery, and personally participated in battles, showing everyone that intelligence, cunning, and the right strategy can overcome brute physical force no matter how great. Hera, the personification of power, supported the Greeks because of her stubborn pride and undying hatred for Troy, caused by Paris's unfair choice that decided to deprive her of victory. On the side of the Trojans was Aphrodite, protecting her favorites. She gave all kinds of support to Paris, her chosen one, and assisted the brave Trojan heroes, never abandoning them. When Paris fought in a duel with Menelaus, Aphrodite saved him at the last moment from imminent death, miraculously transported him from the battlefield to a safe place, and healed his wounds, preventing him from dying. Her blind love for Paris often led to chaos, intensifying the hatred of the Greeks. However, not only goddesses who took an active part played a decisive role in the bloody Trojan War. Apollo, the god of sunlight, art, divination, and healing, also supported Troy, helping them in every possible way to achieve victory. He protected the valiant Hector, the greatest and strongest of the Trojan warriors, preventing him from perishing, and personally directed Paris's arrow, which struck the invincible Achilles in his only vulnerable spot, the heel, taking his life. Apollo symbolized light, harmony, and order, but his actions during the Trojan War clearly demonstrated that he could be ruthless, protecting his chosen ones and unforgiving to his enemies. On the other hand, Poseidon, the mighty god of the seas, also actively sided with the Greeks, driven by his long-standing grudge against the Trojans. The Trojans in the past, having built the walls of their beautiful city, did not pay due respect to Poseidon, neglected his power, and he harbored malice in his heart, waiting for the opportune moment. During the bloody war, he aided the Greeks at sea, summoning fierce storms that mercilessly destroyed Trojan ships, and with his trident, he created enormous, devastating waves to weaken the enemy, bringing them closer to defeat. Battles on the battlefield often turned into a true arena for fierce clashes between the gods, demonstrating their power and hatred. Athena fought with Ares, the cruel god of war, whose madness she managed to overcome thanks to her sharp mind and cunning, surpassing him. Apollo and Poseidon also fiercely opposed each other, as if nature itself was divided into light and wave, finding no common ground. Even almighty Zeus, striving to remain neutral and not interfere in the affairs of people, could not refrain from intervening when the destinies of great heroes and the entire world depended on his wise decisions, predetermining the future. The intervention of the immortal gods made the Trojan War not just an ordinary conflict between mortal men, but a clash of divine ambitions, demonstrating their valor. Every step of the heroes was predetermined by the cunning intervention of the Olympians, guiding them. The gods fiercely defended their favorites, cursed hated enemies, and actively changed the course of the war using their power. But even they, possessing immense power, could not change the inevitable, since the fate of Troy had already been foretold. Zeus, seeing that divine disputes threatened the balance in the world, disrupting harmony, finally ordered all the gods to leave the battlefield and cease their intervention, leaving mortals to complete the bloody epic, determining their own future. The Trojan War became not only the greatest and most tragic trial for people, but also a kind of mirror in which all the weaknesses, passions, and vices of the immortal gods, so similar to mortals, were reflected. The Olympians clearly showed that, despite their divine power and immortality, they are just as susceptible to love, anger, jealousy, and envy as ordinary mortal people, not being perfect. Their active intervention turned an ordinary war into a grandiose epic, where the destinies of people and gods were intertwined forever, forming an inseparable knot. After the turbulent and bloody battles on Earth and the active intervention of the immortal gods in the Trojan War, it is time to turn to peaceful times when mortal people honored their heavenly patrons not with weapons, but with lavish celebrations and beautiful art, expressing love. The ancient Greeks knew perfectly well how to glorify their gods, arranging colorful festivals, turning each holiday into a grand and unforgettable event that united all people, inspired art, and strengthened their faith. These vibrant festivals were not just religious rites and rituals, but real cultural phenomena that left a deep mark on history and had a lasting impact. The most famous and revered of these numerous festivals were undoubtedly the Olympic Games, dedicated to the most powerful and formidable of the Olympian gods, Zeus, who sits enthroned on Mount Olympus. Every 4 years in Olympia, a sacred place located on the western coast of ancient Greece, the strongest and most resilient athletes from all over Hellas gathered to demonstrate their strength, agility, incredible endurance, sportsmanship, and honor the supreme god. The games invariably began with a solemn and colorful procession of athletes and sacrifices to Zeus, accompanied by prayers for victory, good luck, and divine blessing in the competitions. The Olympic competitions included such exciting and spectacular disciplines as running at various distances, javelin and discus throwing, fierce wrestling, dangerous chariot races, and even pancration, a brutal mix of boxing and wrestling requiring strength. Each competition was not just a test of physical capabilities and athletic training, but also an expression of deep reverence for the almighty god Zeus, demonstrating faith. The winners of the Olympic Games did not receive gold and wealth as a reward, but only simple laurel wreaths woven from laurel branches, which were a symbol of Zeus, but their names became immortal, entering history. Olympia itself, with its majestic temple of Zeus and the stunning statue of the god, skillfully created by the great Phidias, was a living embodiment of power and divine majesty, delighting everyone. If the solemn Olympic Games were the epitome of strength, endurance, and athleticism, the colorful Panathenaea in beautiful Athens emphasized beauty, art, deep wisdom, and a close connection with the gods. This important festival, dedicated to the patron goddess of the wise city of Athens, united all strata of society, from simple peasants to noble aristocrats, demonstrating their unity. Once every 4 years, the great Panathenaea were held, lasting several days and including many diverse events, interesting to everyone. The main and most spectacular event of the festival was a grandiose, solemn procession in which thousands of residents of the city took part. Townspeople, dressed in their finest clothes, walked to the sacred Acropolis to solemnly present Athena with a new peplus, a huge and skillfully woven cloak decorated with numerous scenes from her glorious victory over the giants. This beautiful peplos was raised to the huge statue of Athena Parthenos, made of glittering gold and expensive ivory, causing admiration. The Panathenaia included not only sports competitions, demonstrating strength, but also fascinating musical contests and poetic readings, developing culture. One of the most spectacular and exciting events were the traditional chariot races, requiring skill and mesmerizing dances, which were held at the foot of the magnificent temple of Athena, captivating spectators. For the winners in these prestigious competitions, not only fame, honor, and universal respect were prepared, but also amphora filled with fragrant olive oil, considered a symbol of the goddess Athena. The magnificent Panathenaia emphasized the inextricable connection of the city with its patron goddess and inspired residents to new achievements and accomplishments, glorifying Athens. But perhaps the most unusual, joyful, noisy, and fun of all the Greek festivals were the Dionysia, dedicated to Dionysus, the god of winemaking, fertility, theater, religious ecstasy, and festivals, bringing joy and fun. These festivals were held twice a year, the small rural Dionysia in the villages and the large urban Dionysia in majestic Athens, demonstrating love for the god. The small rural Dionysia were simple and popular, with noisy processions, cheerful songs, and fiery dances attracting residents. And the large urban Dionysia turned into a grandiose cultural event, attracting attention. During the Great Dionysia, beautiful Athens became a true center of theatrical art, attracting audiences. For several of the best and most talented playwrights, such as Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, presented their captivating tragedies and sparkling comedies to the judgment of a demanding audience. The ancient theater of Dionysus, located at the foot of the Acropolis, turned into a magical place where ancient myths and tragic stories came to life, allowing viewers to experience catharsis and reflect. The solemn procession that opened the Dionysia was bright, noisy, and memorable. Participants carried the statue of Dionysus, sang cheerful songs, drank delicious wine, and had fun from the heart, not restraining emotions. This joyful holiday was not only a celebration in honor of the revered god, but also a symbol of the joy of life itself, helping to overcome grief and suffering, as well as a symbol of human unity. These three most important holidays, the majestic Olympic Games, the magnificent Panathenaia, and the noisy Dionysia, embodied the three most important aspects of ancient Greek life, defining its values: strength, wisdom, and unbridled joy. Through these vibrant festivals, the ancient Greeks expressed their inextricable connection with the gods, glorified their greatness, admired beauty, and were inspired to great deeds, glorifying their names. These celebrations not only strengthened long-standing religious traditions passed down from generation to generation, but also became a solid foundation of the rich cultural heritage of ancient Greece, which continues to inspire humanity to this day, remaining relevant. After the colorful and noisy festivals, which gathered all of ancient Greece together for a solemn celebration of the gods, it is worth turning to the more personal and sacred aspects of ancient Greek religion to understand it. If the bright festivals were loud and grandiose, attracting the public, then religious rituals and rites represented a quiet, intimate, but no less important way of personal communication with the immortal gods, expressing love. Through numerous sacrifices, solemn temple ceremonies, and sacred feasts, the Greeks expressed their deep devotion, sincere gratitude, and reverence to the gods, strengthening the invisible connection between simple mortal people and immortal Olympian gods, maintaining harmony. Sacrifices were the heart and soul of ancient Greek religion, one of the most important and revered rituals. It was a special act that united people with the gods, instilling hope for receiving their favor, help, and protection from adversity, strengthening faith. The ancient Greeks sincerely believed that the ones, like mortal people, also needed food and drinks to maintain their strength, youth, and divine power. Therefore, sacrifices included a wide variety of valuable gifts, selected animals, delicious food, the best wine, and even rare jewels, demonstrating their love. Most often, domestic animals were chosen as sacrifices, such as strong bulls, obedient sheep, or nimble goats, considered valuable. The animals had to be flawless, healthy, without any defects, since only the best and most worthy gifts were suitable for the immortal gods, deserving admiration. Before the sacrifice was carried out, a special purification rite was performed, where the selected animals were decorated with beautiful wreaths made of flowers and herbs and sprinkled with barley. After the prayer was offered, the animal was killed, and its blood was considered the most sacred and valuable part of the entire sacrificial ritual, possessing power. The blood was poured on the altar, and the meat of the animal was divided into parts. The most valuable part was burned on the altar as a gift to the gods, rising to the heavens along with the smoke, and the rest was eaten by the participants in the religious ceremony, joining them. Beyond chosen animals, offerings often included wine, freshly baked bread, fragrant honey, and olive oil. These valuable items were placed on the altar or burned, so their enticing aromas would reach the heavens, pleasing the gods. For example, Zeus was most often offered white bulls, known for their strength, while Demeter received precious fruits of the earth, such as grain and freshly baked bread, in hopes of a bountiful harvest. Athena was dedicated olive oil, symbolizing her patronage over beautiful Athens, with prayers for protection. Temples in ancient Greece were more than just places of worship where people gathered. They were the very homes of the Mun, their earthly dwellings, where every believer could feel their divine presence and seek guidance. Each temple was dedicated to a specific god, and its unique architecture reflected the greatness, strength, power, and character of its patron, inspiring awe. One of the most famous and magnificent examples, captivating the eye, was the celebrated Parthenon, located in Athens and dedicated to the wise Athena. The Parthenon, skillfully constructed on the summit of the sacred Acropolis, was far more than simply a temple for worship. It was a symbol of victory, prosperity, wealth, and the reliable protection of beautiful Athens, showcasing its grandeur. Inside the temple stood a colossal statue of Athena Parthenos, masterfully crafted from shimmering gold and expensive ivory, captivating the imagination. Each year during the grand Panathenaea festival, priestesses solemnly presented Athena with a new, intricately embroidered peplos, which was carried to the temple in a lavish procession, filling onlookers with wonder. Within the sanctuary, enveloped in mystery, countless prayers addressing the goddess were whispered, and sacrifices expressing love were made as the smoke from the burning gifts slowly ascended to the heavens, delighting the gods. Solemn ceremonies in the temples took place not only during specific important festivals, but also daily, imbuing life with meaning. Priests and priestesses diligently performed purification rituals, earnestly prayed to the gods, and maintained the order and cleanliness of the sacred sanctuaries, ensuring they remained unblemished. Ordinary people who visited the temples brought modest offerings to the gods, praying for help in difficult times or giving thanks for blessings received, and in return they flourished. Temples also served as secure repositories for valuable gifts to the gods. Skillfully crafted statuettes, precious jewelry, and inscribed amphorae filled with fragrant oil or delicious wine, which believers left as tokens of devotion and love. Rituals and ceremonies were an integral part of every ancient Greek's life, regardless of their social standing, whether they were a simple farmer or a mighty, revered king. They allowed one to feel an unbreakable connection with the revered gods, sincerely express gratitude to them, or seek necessary help by offering prayers. But all these actions were not only a religious duty, but something more. They united diverse communities, strengthened social bonds between people, and passed down a deep sense of respect and reverence for the almighty gods from generation to generation, guiding individuals on their path. Sacrifices and solemn temple ceremonies demonstrated to all that in ancient Greek religion, there was no clear separation between the mundane, everyday life and the sacred. They intertwined harmoniously. Every act, whether a simple and sincere prayer or a grand sacrifice with offerings, reminded all believers that people and gods were an integral part of one great world, existing in harmony. Ancient Greek religion has left a profound and indelible mark on the history of all humanity, exerting an enormous influence. Its captivating myths, complex rituals, and profound philosophy not only shaped the daily lives of the ancient Greeks, but also became a solid foundation for the development of culture, art, and science, inspiring subsequent generations. Even after thousands of years, elements of this great tradition continue to live on in modern culture, reminding us of the enduring power of its legacy. The myths of the ancient Greeks still inspire artists, writers, talented musicians, and renowned directors to create masterpieces. From the immortal tragedies of Sophocles and Euripides, celebrating heroes, to modern, exciting films and captivating novels, stories of gods, brave heroes, and their incredible feats continue to capture people's imaginations, compelling empathy. Such well-known figures as the wise Athena, the formidable Zeus, or the cunning Odysseus have become archetypes that are reflected in diverse cultures around the world, sparking admiration. One of the most striking and well-known examples of the Greek legacy continuing to live on is the Olympic Games, which were triumphantly revived in the late 19th century, showing their timelessness. The modern Olympic Games sacredly preserve the spirit of fair competition, unity, and deep reverence for human potential, which was established in ancient Olympia, remembering its roots. The symbolism of the Olympic flame, which is solemnly lit in Greece and proudly carried around the world, serves as an eternal reminder of the unbroken connection to the rich ancient tradition, inspiring awe. Dear friends, thank you for joining me on this fascinating and informative journey through the amazing ancient Greek religion, uncovering new insights. We journeyed through majestic myths full of heroism, learned much about the gods, their complex characters and eternal conflicts, peered into sacred temples, and felt the stirring atmosphere of vibrant festivals that united ordinary people and almighty gods into one whole. Ancient Greece has left us an invaluable legacy that continues to live on in captivating books, beautiful paintings, exciting films, majestic architecture, and much more, inspiring admiration. Each of us can find something close, important, and interesting for ourselves in these amazing stories created by the ancient Greeks, drawing inspiration, wisdom, or simply enjoying a deep immersion into a magical world where myths and captivating reality are skillfully intertwined, filling us with wonder. Thank you so much for being part of and sharing this fascinating narrative. I sincerely hope that it has been not only interesting and informative for you, but also useful, providing food for thought. And may the courageous spirit of the ancient Greek gods invariably inspire you to make important discoveries, to create, to improve yourselves, and to harmoniously find your place in life, guiding you along the way. Until our next exciting encounter with the world of history, and may the almighty Zeus send you clear and cloudless skies overhead, offering hope. The wise Athena grant you true and well-considered solutions in difficult situations, and the cheerful Dionysus provide a little light joy, fun, and inspiration in every day, making it better. Thank you very much for your attention.